the bad boy you're going to want to always be on the look for is widgeon with a completely white head, except for the green stripe, and that's what we call a storm widgeon. Not a different species. They're not sure if it has to do with age or genetics. I would say it's probably both, but it, by definition, unofficial definition. So hopefully everybody's heard of the famous storm widgeon.
Welcome to the Foul Front Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, where our goal is to recruit and educate new hunters while entertaining the rest of you. Without new hunters and the mentorship of those more seasoned, this passion as we know it faces an uncertain future. So get the word out, turn the volume up, and enjoy the show, because you're on the Foul Front.
So yesterday was supposed to be the last day over 100 degrees. We've had 128 days over 100 degrees. And now it'll get down into like the 80s. And then in the winter it'll be down in like the 70s, and that's about as good as it gets.
Awesome.
So I miss the football and the cold nights and the fall. I guess you probably don't have fall yet, but
I would say that we are enjoying some fall-like weather right now.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it was nice. Like yesterday, I went deer hunting and I stood up in my stand and I just froze my butt off. Actually, like because I was a little more cocky than I thought. I was like, oh, 54 degrees, that's nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was something. So,
well, our mountain duck season opens this coming weekend, and it's much cooler up there. It's supposed to be like high in the 70s and lows in the 40s. So that'll be. I think they get the seasons up there, but
so you can go hunt the ducks at higher elevation.
Yeah. That starts this weekend, and then 2 weeks after that is our desert opener, which is where I'm at. Right.
Well, you excited to get on some desert ducks?
Yeah, they're starting to move in. I'm seeing more and more even in town, and then sounds like I watched with all the like people that go birding and report what they see.
Ornithologists.
Yeah, I watch what they are seeing, and it looks like up north they've got pretty good push of pintail and widgeon and teal and stuff.
And do you use eBird to do that?
Yeah.
Who told you about that? I can't remember if it was you that told me or if I told you. I can't remember.
I don't know. Maybe great minds think alike. I just started doing it because I just started getting on like those Facebook birding pages.
Yep.
Just to see like what people were seeing and where. It was like internet scouting.
Exactly. Yeah.
But, yeah, and they've got a lot of. Man, that eBird is great.
It's got maps. It's got everything. You can even filter by specific bird. All right, everybody. Yeah. So this is my friend Tony White, and Tony White and I met in college. I think he was hitting on my girlfriend at the then time. No, just kidding. But
no, he's not kidding.
But anyways, me and Tony became fast friends, and it turned out to be that Tony's some sort of avid bird hunter. And you attempted to get me into duck hunting in college.
Yeah.
But it didn't stick in college. But
that's because we didn't shoot anything or see anything. I do remember that. We were sitting on the dam and trying to scare out some buffleheads, and we could never get around to them.
Yeah,
and then we went
I didn't even know what that meant back then.
Picked up a lab.
So, yeah, and we drove down to Wymore to Matt from High Prairie Sportsman's place, was it his place or was it?
It was one of his friends. They had some yellow labs that they had just had a litter of, and they were giving them away. So we drove down there and got one and ruined the interior of your truck a little bit.
My brand new. Probably shouldn't have bought this with my 1% interest loan that I got. Ford F-150 that I no longer have. So,
yeah,
brand new to me, I should say. Old Remy laid a big old deuce in the back. So, all right, let's fast forward. I got into waterfowl hunting in like 2013, and you were my digital mentor.
Yes. Oh, yes. I remember that as well.
You can air it out. You can let the listeners know.
No, it was. Yeah. When you first started down in, were you in El Paso when you first started?
Yeah.
And you'd like send me pictures of these beautiful specimens, these southern ducks that are all fully plumed, and like, oh, what is this one? And then I finally got one from you that was the most gorgeous cinnamon teal I had ever seen, and I was just like, lucky guy. Go home right now, put that in the freezer, quit hunting, you're done.
No, I think what you did was you called me about an hour after I sent you that picture, and you said, "You didn't breast that duck out, did you?"
That's right. Yes.
I said, no, I'm on my way home. I know that it's a teal that you wanted, and I said, yeah, right. And then
I had to talk you into mounting it. You're like, no, you can have it. I don't want it. I'm like, you might want to reconsider that. I'll give you some time. Just put it in the freezer and let me know what you want to do.
Which is, and thank you. So,
absolutely.
But yeah, no, you got a cinnamon teal down now, don't you?
I do, yeah. So a friend of mine and I went to California last year, and we did pay a guide just so we could have better success than trying to do it on our own since it was a limited hunt.
Right.
We went down there we were down there really for a week, but we only went after cinnamon teal for a day and a half, and we were trying to spot and stalk them through these cattails and these weird water treatment channels that were only about 8 foot wide or so. And they're elusive little creatures. They get up in those cattails and they never come out. So didn't have any luck the first day. And then the second day we got on them pretty well. We each got 2, I think. And then we kind of drove up and down California. We hunted Northern California, Central California, shot a mallard on Facebook headquarters in San Francisco.
On Facebook headquarters?
Well, legally, yes. It was a park duck, unfortunately, that had come over to the public hunting side, and it was about 3 times the size of a wild mallard. So we figured it was one of the Facebook ducks.
That's
we were right in their backyard.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, when did you start hunting? And I guess maybe we haven't prefaced this enough. Me and Tony are very good friends from college. And Tony, where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in South Central Missouri. My dad is a quail biologist, so I grew up hunting upland birds my whole life, quail and pheasant, and we had done a couple destination hunts to like Arizona and stuff, but I'd never really gotten into waterfowl until college. And I have to mention this because I know as soon as Matt hears this, he's going to call me and say, why didn't you give me the credit? I just want everybody to know Matt Zavlanik is the one that got me into waterfowl hunting. He was a great mentor, and when I was in college, it was probably freshman year, maybe it was sophomore year, Matt offered to take me out and show me the ropes on duck hunting, and it just, as soon as he did that, it just kind of spiraled out of control. And now I base everything I do on when the ducks are going to be here, where they're going to be. In fact, speaking to my wife about where we're going to live in the future and where we want to settle down is solely based on waterfowl hunting. She doesn't like that very much, but I'll see if I can sneak in some other reasons to get her into it as well.
Just that you'll be living right next to us.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we've got to have our 1,500-acre ranch with plenty of prairie potholes full of ducks. That's the dream.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, so the intent and point of today's purpose is to talk a little bit about taxidermy, and then beyond taxidermy, besides how to pick one and how to prepare your duck for the taxidermist, it is to talk about I guess, trophy hunting in the duck world, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because, everything that you hunt out there, there's some sort of trophy aspect to it that some people chase. And Tony is the one that every time I send him a pile pic from the back of my truck or something like, hey, check out how we did. And he's like, hey, third one from the left down. Can you send me a better picture of that one? And it's like
zoom in on that one.
It's like, oh my gosh. And then he's like, oh, no, that's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I'm looking for. So you want to explain how you got into taxidermy?
Yeah. So, like I said, I grew up hunting upland game mostly. And so for graduation, my dad took me on a trip to South Dakota for pheasant hunting. And I brought back a gorgeous rooster. And as soon as I got back, I looked up a local taxidermist and brought it to her and just said, do you mind if I watch how you do this? And so from that point, she kind of took me under her wing and showed me the basics of taxidermy, and I'd go back there and use her tools and just kind of hang out and mount some birds because I was too cheap to buy my own stuff in college. And then I kind of expanded after college. When I was in medical school, I started taking customer birds. I'd always taken, a bird from a friend or my brother's or something. But then I kind of opened a business that got a little bit out of hand over the last 3 or 4 years. And so that's I kind of had to slow that down and stop taking in so many birds, especially now that we've moved out of state. But I tried my hand at deer taxidermy and didn't like it. So I've stuck with mostly waterfowl, some upland, but in general, just bird taxidermy for the last 8 years or so. And I've gone and taken a class with a couple of world champions in an attempt to make myself better. I don't know if it really helped or not, but I've learned a lot along the way, and I've had good practice and lots of tries, we'll say. So I don't have a perfect product yet, but I'm working on it.
This week's episode is brought to you by the following partners. Hunt Hickory Creek. New to Hunt Hickory Creek this year is their Central Kansas Lodge. They're going to be running hunters from the end of October all the way through January, and they're situated right between Quivira and Cheyenne Bottoms, which combined can hold hundreds of thousands of birds at a time. Now these guys are going to work their tails off. You got Chase, you got Cody, you got Scotty, and then you've even got Megan in there taking pictures. Guys, if you're going to be traveling outside of your state and you're going to pay for a guide service, don't roll the dice. Come into our Facebook group, pick Chase or Scotty or Cody's brain, figure out who they are, and make sure that you're going to be booking a hunt with them, because they're not just awesome guides, they're great people. They're going to show you a great time. So, if you're going to hunt Kansas, hunt Hickory Creek. We're also brought to you by Dive Bomb Industries, the fastest growing, most affordable decoys on the market with unmatched customer service. Now you can find them on Facebook, Instagram, or divebombindustries.com, and you can find Asher in our listeners group and get yourself into a large, effective, affordable, and easy to set up spread. It takes about a minute to set about a dozen, and they take up no space in the garage or truck. They're tough, extremely realistic, and go get yourself twice the decoys, half the price, none of the hassle. Also brought to you by Toe Tags LLC. Now, federal migratory game bird laws apply in all 50 states. That includes yours, which includes gifting and tagging laws. Make sure to keep your birds separated and or tagged when transporting or storing them with other hunters' birds. Now, this includes from the field to home as well. Gifting in the field, though commonly done, never legal. It must be done at the donor or donee's personal abode. Hey, for other helpful hints and to keep yourself legal, go check Toe Tags LLC out on Facebook, or you can hit up Ryan in our Facebook group, or you can head on over to toetagsllc.com.
So have fun, be safe, and keep it legal. We're also brought to you by Athlon Optics, which produce some of the finest shooting scopes and binoculars on the market. Their ED glass is top notch and rivals the glass of binos 3 or 4 times their price. You're going to be able to pick a goose out in a depression from half a mile with these things. I'm telling you, they're tough, sturdy, and this is where Athlon Optics goes above and beyond their lifetime warranty, which is critical for us waterfowl hunters. I sport the Midas 10x42, and I'm extremely pleased with them. So head on over to Athlon Optics and get yourself a top-of-the-line binocular system for this season at a fraction of the price and a no-worries warranty. We're also brought to you by Freelance Hunt Stats, and I got to tell you, I'm really excited to be using Freelance Hunt Stats this year. If you've never logged your hunts in the past, start doing it. Especially with freelancehuntstats.com, because it's not just a journal. This thing can catalog all of your information, and you can go back, you can look at like how you do on sunny days. It's going to be a game changer for you. So head on over to freelancehuntstats.com and start logging your hunts this season. We're also brought to you by Duck Nuts, and now I've been fighting duck decoy rigging systems since I started. Wrapping, coiling, Texas rigs, talk about a pain in the butt. Now, I work hard, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the morning, it's time to go home, and Duck Nuts allows me to do that so that I can rig my decoys that all I got to do is throw them in a bag. And with our friction system, it's too easy to just pull the line and pack it up or just throw them out. It allows you to adjust for depth, and if you're tired of fighting your decoy rigs, head on over to ducknuts.com and use your 10% off code with Foul Front discount code. We're also brought to you by Gypsum Creek. Now, Gypsum Creek is a full-service gun dog training facility in the heart of the Midwest, and they are looking to build eager, confident, and reliable field companions through a unique approach that you don't find at many other places. So come check out Gypsum Creek Retrievers on their Facebook or Instagram, or you can hit up Evan, the owner, in our Facebook group. And I promise you, this guy loves your dog more than you do, and loves teaching him how to retrieve more than you do. I got to spend a weekend out with them, and it was an awesome time, I'm telling you. What they got going on over there, that's where you're going to want to send your dog. All right, we're also brought to you by the DuckTech mobile app. Increase your odds of success in the blind this year with the DuckTech mobile app. 3-time world duck calling champion Barney Califf teaches you how to make the most important duck sounds and what they mean to a duck and when to use them, the most important part. DuckTech is also available to download on the App Store and Google Play. With the season approaching, get the app today so you can put more ducks on the strap tomorrow. We're also brought to you by SRB Field Rests. No matter what, where, or how you hunt, SRB Field Rests got you covered. They're going to keep your shotgun, rifle, or your bow, or your crossbow safe, clean, and ready for in the field or on the range. Waterfowl hunters in a dry field, a muddy field, marshes, flooded fields, or flooded timber. SRB Field Rests has you covered. Go check them out. They've got a 10% discount code for you with Foul Front, all undercase, one word. We are also brought to you by Gunner Kennels, the market's only double-walled, roto-molded dog crate and 5-star crash-tested rated kennel. These American-made boxes come with a lifetime warranty, and the guys over at Gunner Kennels have done some crazy stuff to show you how strong they really are, like dropping 4,000 pounds on it, hammering it with a 630-pound sled, and tossing it off a 200-foot cliff and shooting it with a 12-gauge shotgun with 0 bullet penetration. You're hitting the road with your dog this season. Gunner Kennels is your safest bet. Protecting your best friend and your investment. So head on over to gunnerkennels.com. We're also brought to you by HTR Innovations, and you have not heard of them yet, but I am hunting out of their A-frame this year, and they have one of the slickest inventions I've seen for waterfowl hunting. It's an awesome little gun stand for the marsh, and go check them out at htrinnovations.com. Also, here's another big thing for you. Do you absolutely hate laying in your layout blind? Well, they got something for you. So go check them out. And our good buddy Jordan over there, he's going to be doing all their filming this year. Looking forward to seeing what they got. Okay, let's get back into this week's episode. I remember when you tried conning me into doing my own taxidermy. And you told me, hey, yeah, just go, get one of the birds, save one of your birds from today. And then, you were explaining to me how I can't remember what method it was. And then I texted you back and I said, damn it, this is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. I remember that.
I couldn't get it, and then I told you, I was like, and you're like, well, what kind of bird was it? And I was like, a ringneck. And you were like, well, that's your issue. So.
Yeah. No, I had forgotten about that. You were trying to skin it, and I was like, well, you skin from the head first and then pull the neck out, and you're like, oh, oops, didn't you pull the head completely off?
I think I started from the back or something.
That's it, yeah.
Because I thought there's no way I'd like deface this thing and then work it. I don't. Because you end up turning the bird completely inside out.
Yeah. We just decided it's too hard to describe over the phone, so just waiting on you to come for a in-person lesson.
Well, I think my wife would kill me if I picked up one more hobby or side gig or something. So
yeah, especially because our wives know each other, and if she finds out, she'll get an earful from my wife. Because here we are, we moved to Arizona, and I don't have a specific room to put all my birds. So I'm trying to like compromise with the wife. Well, we can put a wood duck would look really good in here against your painting of France or whatever. And it's slowly working, but I don't know what I'm going to do with my big cases full of birds. So,
well, you can ship some to Kansas if you want. I know my wife, she actually enjoys the taxidermy downstairs in the basement.
Yeah,
but
that is a blessing.
Yeah, it's probably. I only have. Ow! Oh man, I was walking down my stairs and I just ate it. I'm not even going to edit that out. But anyways, it's probably because I just only have one, and it's a cinnamon teal. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is arguably the best bird you could have gotten mounted. So.
Well, I think next I'm going to get a big old widgeon.
Oh yeah.
Just, I like the cotton tops. So.
Yep. They're gorgeous birds. They're very detailed.
For sure.
They're by far my favorites.
Well, should we get into the meat of the episode here and talk about, one, what you can do to prepare for a taxidermist, and then, two, what you need to be looking for in a taxidermist?
Yes. These are two of the most important things that if I'm not repeating myself over and over and over, somebody on a Facebook group is repeating themselves over and over and over, and it seems like it's something that needs to be stressed, and it's something that needs to be kind of like common knowledge of what to do. So, say you shoot your prime specimen, your trophy bird, to top of your bucket list. You want to make sure it's in 100% prime condition when you take it to the taxidermist. There are things that the taxidermist can do to, if he's missing a feather, or if you shot one of his primary wing feathers off, or he's dirty, or he's got blood on him, whatever. That's all fixable. But there's very important steps you need to take to make sure that you give the best product to your taxidermist so they can give you the best product back. So we'll say you just shot a duck and not quite dead, still kind of flopping around, and you want to finish it off. One of the biggest things that people are starting to go to now are those finishers. And it's like the little spike that you drive into the back of the head. That is very, 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 very few taxidermists I've ever talked to are okay with that method, simply because it just creates another hole in a very, very difficult area to cover up. If you screw up any of those head feathers, they're so fine and delicate that it'll be evident on the final product. So try as hard as you can to put as little damage into the head as possible. The second thing people do, which is a big, big no-no, and it's kind of obvious, is wringing the neck. You never want to wring the neck again because those feathers are very fine and delicate, and there's almost no way to cover that up in the mounting process once you kind of pull those feathers out from the ringing. And then finally, I've even witnessed it in person. I wouldn't believe it was a real thing unless I had seen it myself. But some people bite the heads of the ducks to finish them off, to crack their skulls. Again, not a good idea. You've got those very delicate feathers there. So the best way to finish off a cripple and to keep all the feathers intact is to lay them on a solid surface, the ground, whatever, on their belly, and then either kneel or press with both hands on their back, with actually quite a bit of pressure, until they expire. This basically suffocates them. It sounds brutal, but it actually goes pretty quickly, and it doesn't rip out any feathers, and it doesn't ruffle anything up as long as you do it correctly. That's about the best way to finish one. So that's your first step, is make sure it's done. And you want to get, if you're hunting with a dog, you want to get it away from the dog. Everybody thinks their dog's perfect, but I've been in plenty of situations where we've got some trophy birds that we plan to take back, and then the dog is sitting over there pulling breast feathers out for fun because it's bored. So get it away from the dog, put it in your blind bag, whatever. If it's hot outside, try to keep it out of the sun. Don't put it in an enclosed container in the sun. Kind of obvious stuff. You want to keep it as cool as possible, because that bacterial formation starts like as soon as it dies, and it's kind of a race against the clock at that point. And then when you get home, you're going to want to freeze it correctly. And this I've explained to people many times. The bill, the colors on the bill, especially for like a redhead or a ringneck or the sea ducks, like the white-winged scoters that have all the detail, we need to preserve that as much as possible. So when we're hand painting the artificial bill, those colors come out more accurate and more realistic. So the best way to do that is to wrap a damp paper towel. It doesn't have to be dripping wet. You don't have to get the whole bird wet. But wrap a damp paper towel over both the bill and the feet. And that'll preserve the colors, and kind of think of it as like exposed skin. It's going to get frostbite, and it's going to kind of turn black and die in the freezer if it's not protected. Okay. And then some people I've seen freeze it with the neck sticking straight out. That's dangerous because when it's frozen solid, I've also seen, you drop it or it falls down in the freezer, or you plop something heavy in on top of it in the freezer, and the neck just snaps in half. And while that's fixable, that's an extra thing that could potentially ruin your mount in the end. So a lot of people tuck the head under the wing. That's okay. It tends to kind of ruffle up the feathers under the wing. I prefer to just lay it straight over the back and then put it in a Ziploc freezer bag. Very important. Do not use pantyhose. Do not use Walmart bags.
Who does Walmart bags?
Yeah, Ben. Don't wrap it in newspaper or butcher paper or anything like that. Newspaper and stuff like that wicks out basically any moisture and accelerates the freezer burn process. So a Ziploc freezer bag, big enough to close around it. And I even double bag mine just to be safe, because if you need to save up some money before you take it to the taxidermist, or you need to do your research on the taxidermist you want to use, and it's going to be a while before you can take it there, I would basically freeze it for the apocalypse and double bag it, double wrap it. Some people even wrap it in saran wrap before they bag it, just to seal in all the moisture, because what freezer burning is it basically sucks all the moisture out, and then it freeze dries it, and it does it from the outside in. So protecting the bill and the feet, and then the inner layer of fat just under the skin on the bird is the most important part in the freezing process. So, and then a lot of people ask how long it can be stored like that. As long as you do it correctly, you've sealed it really well, You've got everything protected. I've had birds for, I want to be careful saying this because it could get stretched out a little bit, but I've had birds, and I've heard people have birds for 6, 7, 8, up to 10 years stored that way. I wouldn't recommend it because you're still, after 3 or 4 years, you've got some aspect of freezer burn going on, and that makes the skin much tougher to work with and tougher to groom and make look like an actual duck when in the mounting process. So, it is safe for an extended period of time, several years, but I wouldn't recommend going anywhere past 2 or 3 years just to be safe.
Okay.
And so we've covered what to do with your trophy, how to prepare it, and now you want to look for a taxidermist. The good thing nowadays is we've got social media. You can basically do internet scouting of taxidermists, look at their work, get recommendations from other people. There are Facebook groups, Duck Mounts and More, waterfowl taxidermy tips and techniques, that are loaded with taxidermists posting up their products, and it's really easy to find a good taxidermist nowadays, so you don't have to just settle for the guy across the street. That's not to say you shouldn't check out the guy across the street. He could be phenomenal, and that would make it so much easier on you, but that's what guys tend to do, is just go with the easiest option, and then they're almost universally dissatisfied with what they get back because they didn't do their homework. So check out your local taxidermist. If you can stop in their shop and see their work in person and really look at it. 1, does it look like a duck? 2, do the feathers look clean? I know there's a lot of cheaper taxidermists out there that just kind of throw it together and it's not real clean, and you'll run into problems with bugs down the line that are wanting to get in that fat, and it basically destroys the mount. So this is going to be hopefully something that lasts a lifetime, if not more. So you're putting in a couple $100, maybe several $100 into a mount, so you want to get the best product possible back. I always tell people, don't be afraid to look out of state. It's really easy to ship a bird. Ben has shipped, 2, 3, 4, 5 birds to me?
Yeah, and then of course every time I fly home, I always have some sort of freezer in my carry-on with it. Mm-hmm. Just so you know, you can fly with birds.
Yep, I do it all the time. They give you some weird looks when they x-ray it, but you just tell them it's for taxidermy, and they tend to leave you alone. But look out of state, look at those Facebook pages, look online, and really compare, if they've got a flying mount, compare their picture of a flying mount to a real duck. Some people that don't have a trained eye are willing to accept whatever, but then you run into problems of grease leakage and bugs getting into the fat and ruining your mount. So it's really important to do your homework so you're not disappointed in the end. You can ship ducks for overnight for $20. You can fly with ducks. You can basically do whatever you want, as long as you can find a way to keep it frozen the entire time. It's doable, and there's people that have done it. So that would be my recommendation. Of course, if any of your followers have questions on that, or if they shoot a duck and they're not sure if it's trophy specimen, post up pictures in the group. I'm happy to look at it and give you my recommendations based on that. But that's the long and short of it.
What's the difference between a guy that's, you get $200 and a guy that's charging $800?
Good question. I'm glad you brought that up, actually. A lot of people, so you'll see on these taxidermy pages, a lot of people say, yeah, well, my guy does it for $100 and he does a great job. And then, if they're happy, if whoever's paying that is happy with the job, that's wonderful. But from what I've seen, you really do get what you pay for. There's always the outliers that are crazy. I know in Canada they charge like 3 times what we charge here just because they can, and there's not really an option because you can't. I'm pretty sure you can't ship birds across the line.
Yeah, something with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Yep. So there are people that charge way more than they should. So be aware of that. The average price for just a straight up duck, standing, flying, doesn't matter. A mallard, a widgeon, a wood duck. The average price now is around $300. A couple years ago, it was $250, and there's still a lot of guys that do it for $250 and do a great job. But don't be afraid to look at the guys that are up to $350, $375. There's a reason they charge that much, and it's because they take their time. They have a lot invested in each bird. It's not just an assembly line. I know a lot of guys that make plastic casts of the feet so they don't have shrinkage, so their feet, the paint adheres better and it just looks better overall. And there's guys that use specific paint methods that are more realistic, that cost a lot more money. So just kind of depending on what you want to get, remember you have this for hopefully the rest of your life, and you have to look. You're the one that has to look at it. So base your price range off of what you can afford, and you can find anybody in any price range, but the average is around $300 for just a basic duck. When you get into the geese, they are a nightmare to work with. They're big, they're fat, they smell horrible. They're a mess, and they take at least twice as long, maybe 3 times as long. So you don't be surprised if you're paying $500 to $800 for a big Canada goose. So it just kind of depends on the region and who you're working with and what techniques they use. But I would just in general, unless you know somebody that's doing work locally that you can go view yourself, I would stay away from the $100, $150 range, just based on quality.
Right. I know people are always shocked when I, first tell them, oh, it's going to cost you about, $300. They go, oh man, really? Because I take out a lot of new hunters. And I say, yeah. And then the second thing they get shocked with is they're like, oh yeah, so when will we have it? And I said, oh, I don't know, like 6 months. And
yeah, at least.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, turnaround time. That's what a lot of people. I've had people specifically ask, what takes so long? And it's it's not the process itself. It's always a backlog. I mean, I can if I go shoot a duck this morning, I can bring it home, skin it in half an hour, get all the fat off of it, get it all clean, prepped, and ready in another couple hours, and then mount it in another 4 or 5 hours. So it's possible to do it in a day. The problem is you get guys that bring in 3, 4 birds at a time, and you get life that gets in the way. I mean, every taxidermist I know has a family and is usually a part-timer and, has another job that they work during the day. So these are nights and weekends people. So don't be surprised if you have to wait up to 18 months to get your bird back. Some guys are up to 2 years. I know the really popular Birdman. I think he's in Illinois. He's up to 2 years. Some people say they've waited as long as 3 years. It's a great service. He's got a great product. But if you don't want to wait that long, there's always another guy. And like I said, you can ship it wherever in the U.S. and get it done by whoever you want. And the other thing is it's a hassle for the taxidermist, just because we have to make sure it's extremely safe for the ride, but it is definitely possible to ship a finished mount to the customer as well. And that's probably, I would say, 90% of what Birdman does, is take in mail order stuff and ship it back out.
Geez, that'd be nerve-wracking packaging that.
Yeah, I've done it. I shipped 2 birds to your friend up in Pennsylvania. And, his parents, and that, I was biting my nails until I got the call that they got there safely and everything was okay with them. But that's, I hadn't really done that much before, so I was scared, but there's guys that do it all the time. So these are all factors to consider: price, length of time. But the biggest factor, that should be whether or not you go with a certain taxidermist's quality.
Sure.
So,
I get that, and it's just a hard bullet to initially bite off on to understand. I think, especially for me, I think that lesson was only learned a few years ago. So, but it also helped that I had a buddy that did taxidermy. So,
and did it cheap back then.
That's right. So here's if anybody, here's the real advice here. Go back to college, find a guy that is going to get into taxidermy, pay for all of his beer and some of his meals, and have him do taxidermy on the cheap for you.
Oh yeah, get in good with your taxidermist. That's probably the most important life lesson. They'll treat you right.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. You can shoot a bird, get it all prepped, and if you have a taxidermist in mind, but need a little time to save up some money. A lot of taxidermists charge a deposit. Some of them don't, and especially if you know them pretty well, some of them may not charge you. But I would say it's important to get the bird to the taxidermist as quickly as you can, just to so they can make sure that it's prepped and packaged correctly, and there's not going to be any problems. Because if say you put it in the freezer and maybe didn't seal the bag well enough, and you wait 3 years to bring it to a taxidermist, it's basically exposed to open air in the freezer, and so that bird while it's still workable, it's not going to come out near as nice as a bird that wasn't. So I would say get the bird to the taxidermist as quickly as possible. Just let them know that you want to save up some money, and they'll hold it for you. But at least that way it's in good hands and it's going to be treated right. And a lot of these guys have temperature alarms on their freezers, so if their freezers go out, they know. Whereas how often do you go to your deep freeze and check to make sure it's still working? I do it
every day.
I do it like 3 times a day, but some people might not do it for a couple weeks, and by that point
you're done.
Kind of SOL, yep. So I've heard of many people, people with mallard pintail hybrids, people with these crazy ducks that their freezers went out and they didn't know it, and they totally lost it. So that would be what I would do. And then you wanted to talk about kind of trophy taxidermy, right?
Yeah, trophy aspects. So, I think every species has its one thing or two things that you can really judge the specimen based off that.
Absolutely. That's again on these taxidermy forums and Facebook groups and websites and stuff. There's always people posting as soon as duck season starts in October or September or whatever. Is this a good bird? Is this mature? Should I mount this? So I'll just give a couple pointers for each, some of the main species to look for. It'd be nice to show pictures, but again, if you guys have questions on birds, feel free to post them up in the group. I love seeing pictures of other people's success because I don't get to hunt as much as I used to. So it's one, nice to see that, and two, I give you some recommendations and pointers on what to look for each specific bird. But
right.
So we'll start with the teal, and it looks like you've got kind of followers from all over the country. Is that correct?
Yeah, that all 50 states. I don't know about Hawaii, but yeah, everybody. It's a very eclectic group in there.
Okay, so I will make just a kind of a general statement, and it's not really fair, but it's just the way of the world. The southern hunters, basically southern birds, are much better quality than the northern birds, simply because the seasons in the north, like Wisconsin and all those places up there, I think their season ends in like December or something, and that's really when the birds start turning over and getting good. You will shoot birds in late October, November that are pretty good specimens, but as someone who is extremely picky about birds, and I tend to try to wait until the very, very end of season, because you can't get better than a January 31st specimen of any species, basically. So that's just some general things to keep in mind. Southern birds tend to be a little bit more plumed out because the season's later, and they, they're down there for the winter, and then they're on their way back up. So it just happens that way. So a lot of guys go down to Texas, Louisiana, California. I don't think anybody comes to Arizona specifically to duck hunt, but
except you.
Except me. Here I am. I wanted that cinnamon teal. So let's start with cinnamon teal. These, I think, you know what? If you shoot a cinnamon teal, mount it. I don't care what it looks like. They're not rare. That's the thing, but they're a bucket list species for almost any waterfowler. And for the most part, it's just little picky things, picking out the prime specimens versus the less than prime, and it's basically the color. So older, more mature. When I say mature, I mean age-wise. I don't mean season. So more mature, 3, 4, 5, 8-year-old cinnamon teal are darker, kind of a brick red in color, whereas the younger guys tend to be a little bit more bright orange. And you don't know unless you really put one of each next to each other. That's about the only way to tell them apart.
Do you remember what mine was?
Yeah, yours was a nice old brick red one. Another thing you can look at is the belly. They all have kind of a dark grayish, blackish, brownish belly. But the mature old guys get more black as they age. So they've got they're almost like a black-bellied tree duck. There's black belly and then a dark brick red, basically everywhere else on the body. You see, if you're not shooting, because they tend to be more southern birds, if you're not shooting them later in the season, you'll see little immature feathers scattered around, especially in the side pockets, which are those big fluffy feathers on the sides that they tuck their wings into. Look for brownish, brown striped feathers. They tend to be more rounded than mature feathers. If there's a few of them, taxidermists can always pluck them out and you won't know the difference. But if there's a big gob of them, tend to pick poses that hide them a little bit. So maybe a preening pose, whereas instead of a flat out standing pose where those side pockets are exposed. So just a few little picky things on those. And then blue wings.
Well, hold on. I have a tertiary question I want to ask for each species. All right.
Sorry. Yes.
You get a great looking cinnamon teal in. What pose are you putting it in?
So, okay. So I've debated this. It's been like an internal debate with me for a very long time. What I like better, flying or standing, just in simple terms. And no matter what it is, I always tend to think a standing pose looks much better than a flying pose. Of course, you can get into like the crazy flying poses where they're turned and flipped and they're coming in hard or they're cupped or whatever, as opposed to just a run-of-the-mill flying pose where they're plastered against the wall. But with standing, you get to see basically every feather on the bird. You can have a little bit of a wing out for like a resting pose or a preening pose, so you get to see the colors on the wing as well. But you really get to see the size and the shape and the colors on the bird the best in a standing pose. That's my opinion. The problem with standing poses is finding real estate to put them on the wall. That's my problem, because you basically have to have a branch or something sticking out of the wall to be able to hang them up. Otherwise, it's going to be a tabletop mount. So that's the downside of standing mounts. But I do prefer the look of them in almost every way, as opposed to a flying mount.
So with the cinnamon teal, it's going to be a standing mount.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
For sure. if I were to do a flying mount, just for those who just prefer flying mounts, I would have it either going sideways or flying like away from you into the wall, or flushing, kind of like we did with yours, Ben. Just anything basically to show off the back. I've seen people mount them, and it's whatever you want to do, but you want to show off the best side of the bird, and that's by far the back with the scapular feathers and the wings on the cinnamon teal that have all the detail and the colors. So choose what works best for you, but that's what I would be doing.
All right, so on to the blue-winged teal.
Yes, blue-winged teal. This is an obvious one. We've all seen pictures of fully plumed blue-winged teal when they come back in the spring. Very few of us get the opportunity to harvest one like that. Seems like you need to go to Texas or Florida, Louisiana, one of the coastal states, to get that opportunity, because they're not coming back until mid to late January. They're not starting their reverse migration until then, so you really don't get the colors unless you're down there. Of course, you can always go birding and take pictures of them when they come back to your state in the spring, but unfortunately we can't harvest them then. So if you do get the chance to harvest a plumed out blue-winged teal, look for the head will be kind of a gunmetal gray color. And of course you've got the white crescents on the cheeks, but look for the purple iridescence in the head. That's kind of an indicator that he's got his breeding plumage on and he's ready to go. The other thing to look for on them is sometimes those crescents, the really, really, really good ones, is very rare, but the really, really good ones, the white crescents actually continue on past the face onto the back of the head and neck and coalesce into like a white line, almost like a wood duck. So if you've got one of those, yeah, definitely. I've seen pictures. I've seen one mounted, and I've seen pictures of some live ones, but unfortunately I've never harvested one. But that would be the big thing to look for there. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. Green-winged teal. These are a lot more common to get in good plumage. Again, like everything else, they don't really fully plume out until mid to late January. They don't really lose their eclipse plumage fully until late December. You'll see those they almost look like hen feathers, like on the back and in the side. They're rounded and they're brown and they're striped and they're kind of funny looking against the gray background of the rest of the feathers. But once they lose those, they make mount whatever you want. Mount it if it's a memorable specimen for you, or if you just never get the opportunity to shoot another one, mount it. But if you can, wait until they lose their eclipse plumage, and then towards mid to late January, they get a solid black stripe down the scapular feathers, which is the long feathers down the back that cover the wings. There'll be a solid black stripe, and that's how you know that one is all done and ready to go. And with the blue wing and green wing, I'm choosing a standing mount on those as well, only because I would mount them all together in one scene.
Like a little trio.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm working towards that too. So.
Yeah.
But mine will be flying, I think. So.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, they look awesome in a flying mount too. I've seen many people do it that way. So do whatever looks best to you. But my thing is I want to be able to put them under glass, so I don't have to deal with dust and issues down the road. But cleaning mounts is a whole other topic. We can talk about it another time.
Okay, well, what big duck should we move into?
Let's go to widgeon, big bad widgeon. So hopefully everybody's heard of the famous storm widgeon. That is your ultimate widgeon trophy, unless you're getting a Eurasian widgeon, then that counts too. But with widgeon, so the thing is, it's not a problem with being plumed out really with them. I've shot widgeon in early December, late November, early December, that had all their feathers. They don't go through really an eclipse process, so they've got their colors. It's just whether or not they have pin feathers. And pin feathers, for those who don't know, are the immature feathers that are growing in. Some people call them blood feathers. They have a blood supply because they're growing, but they tend to not be adhered to the skin. So when you skin them and wash them and get them all prepped to mount, those little pin feathers tend to fall out, and those are a big problem early in the season. But for widgeon, their colors are going to be there no matter what. A lot of people prefer the ones with the solid green stripe on the head. I prefer that as well, but keep in mind, there are other color phases, not necessarily whether or not it's plumed out, but there's a gray phase of widgeon where the black and white, the salt and pepper on the face kind of fades into the green on the head, and so it's not as apparent. Still a good bird, maybe not as pretty, but the bad boy you're going to want to always be on the look for is widgeon with a completely white head, except for the green stripe, and that's what we call a storm widgeon. Not a different species. They're not sure if it has to do with age or genetics. I would say it's probably both. But it, by definition, unofficial definition, it's where the buff color, the white in the cotton top, comes down around and under the eyes, and then down the neck as well.
Now, we had one that was close for you last year, but it was speckled, right?
Yep. So, to me, that still counts. If you've got white coming around and below the eyes, I would say any of that counts. I've shot one like that, but the majority of the ones I have shot and seen shot are just the regular green stripe guys.
Now, who taught you this? Who calls it storm widgeon? Because every time I talk to somebody, they go, "A what?"
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the exact history on it is. There's a guy that's named Pat Pitt. He's a waterfowl legend, and he basically knows everything about everything waterfowl. And I'm trying to remember what he said about it, but it was way, way, way back in the day. They would notice after big storms or something, those widgeon with the white faces would show up. Probably just a coincidence, but I'm pretty sure that's how they got the name storm widgeon. It's a cool name for a cool bird, but I can't recall exactly what the history is on it.
Now, Eurasian widgeon, that's a different subspecies, or is it just a weird genetic thing? Okay.
Yeah, it's a different species. So they're seeing them more, and actually, we were talking about these ornithologists earlier. They've recorded several instances of Eurasian widgeon here in Arizona. They're not common, but they're more common in California and Oregon, where they're on the coast of, in Alaska and Italy, and they're all over Europe and Asia. That's why they're called Eurasian widgeon. But they're basically the same as the American widgeon, but they tend to not lose they actually do go through an eclipse plumage phase, and they tend to not lose their eclipse plumage until mid to late January, sometimes in December. But once they're feathered out, and there's I'm sure people that are more familiar with them have certain things they look for, but I'd say if you ever shoot a Eurasian widgeon, I would mount it, because you may never get another chance. And
Eurasian widgeons, they're more purple, correct?
So they have that is the Kylo widgeon. The Eurasian widgeon have more of they look almost exactly like an American widgeon, except the head is like this orangish brick red. They get a cotton top as well, and they also sometimes interbreed with American widgeon and get a little bit of a faint green stripe in their head. So they've got the brick red on the head and neck, and then sometimes they'll get the green stripe. But almost universally they have a cotton top. Some of them are more pronounced than others, but I'd say any Eurasian widgeon is a good Eurasian widgeon.
Okay.
So.
And pose for the widgeon.
That's a good question. I like just a specific pose I like on them is they tend to be aggressive. So if you look up, just Google image search aggressive widgeon, where they're kind of fighting off their buddies for a mate, and they cock their wings back and they stick their neck out and like basically hiss at the other widgeon, and that's you'll have to look up a picture to know what I'm talking about, but I think they look cool like that. So like a swimming, standing mount, they do look cool flying as well. Basically anything you do, widgeon are my favorite by far.
Yeah, I love shooting widgeon, so.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Gadwall. Yeah. So a gadwall is a gadwall. Everybody says they're underappreciated, and they are. The design and the details on the feathers are just amazing. But one thing to look for with them, they share some ancient genes with the falcated duck, and I believe that is an Asian duck as well. But they get a purple iridescence. Some of them, not all of them. It's a genetic thing again. Get a purple iridescence on the crown of their head, and some are way better than others. Some are just a little faint amount, and some don't have it at all. So kind of the ultimate trophy is one that those genes have kind of gone crazy, and it's like almost a two-tone head where like the crown above the eyes is this dark brown with purple iridescence through it, and then below the eyes on the cheeks, it's like this buff color. I've seen a few pictures of those. They're very rare, but if you're out looking at gadwalls, pay close attention to the drake's heads, because that's about the only thing that is very variable in that species. Otherwise, you can shoot them from mid to late October through January, and they'll look the same. Just I would tend not to save any bird until mid to late October, even into November, just for the sake of those pin feathers we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I think my favorite part about them is the white speculum.
Yeah.
And I think if I were going to get a something a pose of them, I would have something that highlights that speculum, and then like you said, from across the room, they might not be that magnificent looking, but when you're 3 or 4 feet away from them, those little gray feathers are crazy good looking. So
yeah, with all the detail that's in them, you have to be up close to see it. But yeah, I totally agree. And a lot of people, since they've got kind of those weird wings, like you said, they've got the brown coverts, upper coverts on the wing, fading into white and sometimes black. A lot of people like to show those off. So
yeah,
gadwall are another one of my favorites, especially to hunt. They come out of the heavens and just dive bomb you. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, they always, there's people that say they go out and they specifically target gadwall, for a particular hunt and whatnot. And I always found that very interesting because whenever we're hunting, like we know when okay, there's a group of gadwall. Like, all right, everyone, sit tight, and because they're to me, once they commit, then they're good to go. But it's getting them past that 400-yard range where it's like they don't know if this is their spot or not. So
yep, no, I agree. I have my other Ben friend, Ben Fisher. He's got a spot he used to take me to back in the day that is basically a gadwall hole, and you can almost guarantee every time you go out you're going to shoot gadwall off of it. And a lot of times we'll just get to chatting and not be paying attention, and we'll just have groups of 3, 4, 10, 15 gadwall just dumping in out of nowhere, and just like it's crazy. It's almost like diver hunting, but just these little bitty gadwalls. And then of course everyone's favorite puddler, the pintail.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you want to wait as late as you can to get as much length on those 2 pin feathers on the tail that make up the pintail. The later it is, the longer they get. I've seen some that are, the feather itself not sticking out from the tail, but the feather itself are 8-9 inches long.
Oh,
especially
geez.
down in Texas, they get huge because they can shoot them till the end of January before they come back up. So
you remember that pintail we found on the Rio?
Yeah, I do.
What was it?
And you still have that pin?
Yeah. What was it was like somebody burned it or cleaned it out there. I can't remember what it was.
No, it wasn't even cleaned. It was just it was a whole bird and it was rotten, or it was beginning to rot. But it was kind of upsetting that somebody would do that to a pintail. And I guess, didn't you talk to the warden and they said they had problems with people shooting and leaving ducks and not doing anything with them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
it's sad. It's hard to get a good pintail, and just to see it go to waste like that is sad. But pintails in general, obviously the pin on the tail is what you want to look out for. Another thing with them, and it's just a very picky thing. Most people don't care. The only place they tend to hold their eclipse feathers and their immature feathers, even on the oldest birds, is in the back. So those short feathers that go down the rump right before you get to the tail. Mm-hmm. Look for feathers that stick out there. I call them ladder feathers because they're straight and they're kind of grayish white, and they have black bars across them. If there's a few, like I say, you can pull them out and you won't know a difference. But I've only shot a couple ever that don't have those ladder feathers on the back, and this is even shooting them in late January. So they're one of the latest puddlers to fully plume out. But of course, you can always choose poses that hide that stuff, and again, if you shoot a nice pintail with a good sprig on it.
The sprig is nice and all that, but I like the neck.
Oh yeah,
the brown and the gray, the white, like where all that meets, and that's my favorite part is seeing that thing fully extended out. And
yep, and my other favorite part is the scapular feathers, those pinstripey feathers, long, sharp looking feathers along the back. When they get all fluffed up, they're sweet. That's probably the best part.
I don't think there's a lot of birds that I would prefer a dead mount on as opposed to a live mount, but I think the pintail would be one of them.
Absolutely. Actually, right before you called, I was looking at a pintail dead mount and thinking that, because when they're dead, they relax, and so all those scapular feathers kind of fall outward, and it makes a cool effect with all those little pinstripey deals going every which way.
Yeah, and you can have that head and that neck completely extended forward, hanging down or hanging off something.
Yep, pintail dead mounts are, like you say, probably my choice dead mount. I don't typically like them, but yeah, I agree. I was actually just thinking that I've got 4 or 5 personal pintails in the freezer that I need to do something with, and I might end up just doing a big old dead mount with them.
You know what I always thought would be a really cool mount is getting like an old Chevy back end bumper.
Yeah.
And having the tailgate down and having a bunch of dead mounts hanging off of it. Or like some, maybe like you just hang it up that way. And I always thought that'd be like a cool little homage to the, tailgate, and because every hunt you go on, birds get laid on tailgates and pictures get taken. So,
yeah, that's a sweet idea. And actually, I got an old, I don't know what year it is. It's probably 50s or 60s Chevy tailgate from my grandpa's house, actually. And I thought about doing something like that, but then again, I know I'm going to be moving a few more times in the next couple of years, so you got to also keep that in mind. That'd be a difficult thing to move, but yeah, that would be the ultimate man cave mount, because I know my wife would not let me put that up anywhere in the public areas.
I think my wife would too, draw the line there. So.
They are the limiting factor here.
You put like a 2-man limit on the back of a tailgate or something, that is an expensive taxidermy bill.
Oh yeah, why do you think I got into it myself? So I could save money. I'm too cheap. But yeah, that'd be something. If you did something like that, you could just keep add to it every year, add one or two a year, and just keep watching them pile up. That'd be sweet.
Yeah. All right. After the pintail.
Yeah. Are there any other puddler ducks you want to talk about? I'm trying to think what else we've got. Talked about the good majority of them. There's things like tree ducks and stuff like that not a lot of people get the chance to hunt. If you do, like I say, you should just mount it. The problem with those and most other southern birds that stay southern like that and don't migrate north, they almost inevitably have pin feathers year round. Even if you're shooting them at the end of January, they're going to be full of pin feathers. Yeah. Still, you can still work with them. They still make great mounts, but it's just unavoidable with those. So keep that in mind.
Well, I think the one last one that we should hit on, King of Green, what makes a good mallard specimen?
Oh, yes. Duh. Mallards. So I would say a mallard's a mallard, but if you start looking, you get so when the big fat mallards come down from Canada and everywhere up there, and they start it starts getting later in the year, and then their hormones are going crazy, so they start growing their breeding plumage and all that good stuff. They get those bright reddish orange feet as opposed to just like the plain orange in a local mallard. So keep a lookout for those. Like if you get a big push of birds from the north and you're shooting mallards, just take a look at the feet. It doesn't make them any more special. It's just something interesting to kind of see, where the season's at and where they're at in their breeding cycle. They get a more reddish tint. Some people call them northern red legs. Some people say it's from the cold. It's not. It's from the hormones. The other thing to look at on mallards is the back feathers, the rump right before the tail. Typically black throughout the season, but then the only thing I've been able to pick out on a mallard that is variable is those rump feathers. They get green iridescence to them. So that's just that. You have to be close enough to tell, and it has to be in the right light. But that's a good indicator that it's a good, fully mature, fully plumed bird. And then I guess we should talk about its buddy, the smiling mallard, the shoveler. So these are very, very difficult to get completely 100% fully plumed because of their late eclipse phase. They will almost always hold eclipse feathers in the neck and chest area. Later in the late winter, early spring, they will start to get the white chest and neck, get a solid green head, and get all the colors on the scapular feathers and the rufous reddish brown color on the sides and breast. But the thing, if you are lucky enough to shoot a very, very late season shoveler, look in those white areas. Anywhere it's white should be uninterrupted by those eclipse feathers. Most of the ones I've seen almost universally have one or two eclipse feathers. If it doesn't bother you, fine. You can always pull them out, whatever. I've shot one, and that was the one I shot with you, Ben, that didn't have any eclipse. He was fully plumed. So a solid green head, and where the areas that are white, those need to be solid white too, and that is a fully plumed bird. But again, they're very difficult to get. You have to go somewhere south to get them, or California. They're all over California. But that about does it for the puddle ducks.
Yeah, let's just touch on a few divers before we get on out of here, and I guess we'll choose. I guess we'll go with some of the more common ones. I'd like to know a ringneck. For sure.
So ringneck. A lot of people. I've actually heard people say, "Why do they call them ringnecks?" And some people call them ring bills because they've got the black and white ring around the bill. And that's because a lot of people don't actually get to see them when they are fully plumed, and this is why they have the name ringneck. They get this reddish brown ring around the neck in January, and it gets some reddish iridescence to it, and then the head gets purple iridescence to it. So they really spiff up towards the end of season. Otherwise, they look basically the same. Basically, all divers look the same throughout the year. There's just certain little things that change about them.
That pop up or something like that.
Yeah. So a redhead, you get the reddish purple iridescence in the head. The ring neck, you get the ring around the neck.
Well, I think the coolest part of the ring necks is their bills.
Yeah, yeah.
The
definitely.
Black, gray, and white that all come together on one bill.
Yeah.
How do you preserve the bill on that, or do you have to just paint match as closely as you can?
Yeah. So that's you bring up a good point, and why that I stressed earlier to wrap the bill and feet in wet paper towels to preserve that, so the painting can be as accurate as possible. It's very difficult to paint that and have it look good, but basically, I only use, and most people only use, artificial heads that are casted from real duck heads, and then we just paint them up. But yeah, that ring necks and redheads, the bills on them are cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't figured out exactly what it is on the redhead, but sometimes the bill will be bright blue, sometimes it will be dull gray. I don't know if it has to do with testosterone or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, they've got some cool bills. A scop is a scop. You'll get purple iridescence in the lesser scop, and green iridescence in the greater scop towards the end of the season. But they look good kind of during the whole season. Actually, I take that back. At the very end of season, the most mature, I mean, I'm talking like 5% of greater scop get fully white side pocket feathers, and those are those feathers on the sides that they tuck their wings into. It's very hard to find one that doesn't have a dark brown or a light brown or a dirty gray side pocket. I've been after one for years. I've only seen a couple. Lesser scops tend to hold all of that, those dirty feathers in there too, so they don't look as great, but they look good flying when you can hide that. And then the big daddy canvasback. Yeah. So these are, I would say, the last bird of them all, of all the duck species, to fully feather out. So early in season, you get the gray on the back, and the gray in the wings, and the head and neck don't really change much. But as you get to the later season, they turn more white on the backs, and the biggest, most mature ones have white in their wings as well. So sometimes you'll see them with a white back and then gray wings, and that's a fully plumed, less mature bird. So and I think I read they don't get the full white on their back and wings until they're like 6 or 8 years old.
Really?
Yeah. So, but the reason I say that they're the last to plume out, it's also almost inevitable, kind of like the tree ducks, that they're going to have pin feathers, and they usually hold them in their head and neck, and that's kind of a bad place to have them, because if they fall out, then you've got some spots they're very hard to cover up.
Sure.
So, you can definitely get good mounts out of birds, out of canvasbacks that are shot from November on. But the absolute best ones, the big white ones, you really don't see until January. And if I'm wanting a trophy mount or one that I'd take to competition, I would go for the very last day of season at sundown, so it has as much time as possible to get rid of all those pin feathers, so you don't run into problems. But otherwise, the divers basically stay the same. They just get a little bit better towards the end of season. And then the geese, just real quick on the geese, early goose season, people shoot Canadas and want them mounted. I would highly recommend against it because they are completely full of pin feathers from head to tail, and they're already a mess to work with. And then you get those pin feathers, and it's not fun. I would wait until at least mid to late October, November before you get a Canada goose mounted. And that goes for basically all of them. It's rare to shoot snow geese in the fall, although we've done it. In every goose species, I would wait. Don't get the first bird of the year mounted. Wait a few weeks until it gets really cold, and they force those pin feathers to mature for insulation, and then shoot them, kill them all.
So, ever since you started taxidermy and whatnot, I suppose it's been almost a plague to you because you add this whole other thing to your hunting where you're not even shooting at some groups, and you're calling off shots, or you don't do that finishing cripple shot. And
you are actually 100% correct, and I tell people this a lot, that it's basically ruined me. I'm super selective on what I do shoot. I do go out and hunt, season opener and a few times throughout the season until like December and January. But I don't usually start really hunting until late December through January, so I can get those most prime birds. And a lot of people say, how do you shoot such good birds all the time? How do you get such great specimens? And that's basically how I do it. I spot and stock, and I'm very selective. But it comes at the expense of, some people think a truck full of birds is a good hunt. I think a fully primed canvasback is a great hunt. So to each their own, but it has also ruined me in the sense that I'm never satisfied with the birds I do get. There's a couple that I'm like, a blue-winged teal I shot in Texas last year. It had blue that went down the back, and there's no way they could get better than this. This is a 100% bird, and so I'll keep this one. But I've got 2 freezers full of birds that I'm kind of hem-hawing around on. Do I want to mount this or wait for a better one? So taxidermy is fun. I get to see a lot of cool birds that I wouldn't maybe normally get to see, hybrids and stuff like that. But it's kind of a play, as you say, for hunting experience.
Yeah. So, okay, here's a question for you. Your favorite bird harvested, like your number one bird that you've ever taken yourself?
That would be hands down mallard redhead hybrid that I shot. When was that? Probably 3 years ago. Yeah. 4 years ago, maybe. I shot it. I actually went out to western Nebraska because eastern Nebraska already closed their season, and this was like late January. And a group of 4 Drake mallards came in and gave a look but didn't commit. But when they passed by, I noticed one had a blue bill, and it took me a second. I was like, that's weird. And then I was like, oh crap, that's a mallard pintail hybrid. So I focused. I didn't take my eye off of it as it swung around, and as soon as it came back, luckily I shot it and didn't miss. And picked it up, and what the hell is this? It was had like this purple head and bright blue bill, big giant yellow feet. Is the green on the speculum, whereas mallards are typically blue. And I couldn't figure out what the heck it was, so I had typical taxidermist, I took a blow dryer to it to kind of fluff it up and get all the water off of it so I could really look at it and tell what it was. And I sent some pictures to some ornithologist buddies, and the consensus was it was either a mallard and scaup hybrid or a mallard redhead hybrid. And it turns out a couple people have shot almost identical birds. In the past, there's a hybrid bird study out of the University of Washington that has a couple specimens. So we just compared it to that, and it turns out it's a mallard redhead hybrid, which had no idea could even exist. But redheads are kind of parasitic nesters, it sounds like. So, there could have been a redhead drake hatched with a bunch of mallards and grew up and thought he was a mallard and mated with a mallard hen. And I can't explain how it came about, but very interesting. I've only seen, there's historic record of, I think, maybe 3 others. And then I saw last year somebody else had shot one, so that makes 5 now that I know about.
Right. That's pretty special.
Yeah. So, of course, that's mounted. And I talked to my dad, as he used to just hunt back in the day to eat, basically. And I was like, did you not have hybrids back then? Why don't we see like these old hybrids mounted, and why don't people talk about them? And he's like, we just thought it was a weird looking mallard and ate it. So I can imagine there's been several more shot that nobody thought twice about, but that's by far my favorite bird, and I don't know if I can really top that. So we'll see. Each season, look forward to the weird crap I'm going to see while I'm out, and hopefully harvest.
Yeah. So down in Arizona this year, how many days do you think you're going to be able to get out with work?
So our season opens this coming weekend, and luckily my schedule right now, I'm not working weekends, and then I work, I think, every other weekend towards the end of season. So I'll definitely get out on the weekends as much as possible, and there's a few opportunities where I'll be getting off early, and so I may go what we call tank jumping here. They've got these man-made little ponds out in the desert that catch rainwater, and they call them tanks, and those tend to hold ducks in the winter, so I may be able to do a little bit of extra shooting that way.
Awesome.
So we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you updated, and I may, after you post this, I may do a video of how to so people can see how to prep a bird for the taxidermist. So
sure,
you can put that up.
Absolutely.
And that way we can guarantee a few more people are doing it right.
You did one with Matt and High Prairie Sportsman, didn't you?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
We'll just throw that one.
Yeah. There we go. Perfect.
So Matt, if you're listening, well, I know you're listening, but go ahead and post that video right now. Just pause. But yeah, okay. So I ask every guest this, and I want to know yours as well. You only get to go on one more hunt your entire life. Waterfowl hunt. Where are you going? Who are you going with? What's the weather like? What's the season? Paint me a picture.
So, that's a good question. I can't beat the hunting in the Midwest. But if I were to go on one more hunt ever, I would say it would be in the Aleutian Islands, Island X in Alaska, for sea ducks. I think sea ducks are cool. I think they're interesting. If I never shoot one, oh well. But I think that hunt, where you're basically in a layout boat on the ocean, trying not to drown, while getting hammered with king eiders and harlequin and long-tailed ducks and all those, in a big sea storm, I guess.
Oh yeah,
I think that would
very
be the
very
ultimate.
romantic picture there. So
yes, very the ultimate manhunt.
Like the was that commercial with Tony Vandemore with SB3, I think, where he's just sitting up against the black rocks, shooting king eiders.
Yeah. Yep. It looks like a blast, and it sounds like the hunt is very dependent on the sea conditions out there. So you'd have to hit it right, but that would be the ultimate, I think, hunt to prove you're a man.
Awesome. All right, Tony, I appreciate you coming out and coming on to the podcast. I know you're a busy guy, and for those of you that don't know, I actually overslept this morning and missed the first time. Thankfully, Tony has overslept on me a couple times. So.
Many times. That's all right. That's why I didn't get upset, because I know I've done the same to you.
That's good. Well, I'm excited for you to. Hopefully, you can swing back up here sometime over, the holidays or something like that. We can get a hunt in, and
I'm definitely. I'm hoping to. Unfortunately, I won't know until right before. But if you'll be the first to know if I get the chance to come back up there to do a goose hunt or something, big late season hunt.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right, brother. You enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and tell your wife and that little one hi for me, and yeah.
All right, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And hopefully somebody learned something from this.
I'm sure they did. I did. So
good. All right. Well, mission accomplished.
I want to give a huge shout out, like we always do during this time, to our partners. So we got Hunt Hickory Creek, which, if you're not familiar with Hunt Hickory Creek, that's Chase and Cody and Scotty and Megan. They're all in the group, and these are a good group of people. I talked to at least one of them, mostly Chase, at least 2 or 3 times a week, whether it's deer hunting or talking about birds or just rubbing in the fantasy football smack talk and all that stuff. Anyways, hey, don't put your money in something that you can't first validate or like get to know or something like that. You can get in there, you can literally see what you're going to be getting out there in the blind with these guys and these guides. So go check them out. Good people, even better people to go hunt with. So we've also got Dive Bomb Industries, and Dive Bomb Industries. They did a lot of good work for us and put a lot of our listeners into some really affordable spreads, and I am just pumped to get out and start targeting some big ducks with my spread that we're all set up with over here, and just really excited to put the 2D ideology to the test. So, all right, we've also got Toe Tags LLC. You guys heard Ryan's story, and if you haven't heard Ryan's story, go check it out. Episode 23. But anyways, just check out. Go look for the Toe Tags LLC story. Whether or not you want to argue that it is actually a regulation or an enforceable law or anything, I mean, the law is the law, and I'm not going to put myself in a position, at least anymore, to where I can be, whether or not I get a ticket is at the discretion of the investigating officer or however things are going that day. So. Just for a couple cents a day, or hunt, I should say, you can be fully taken care of. You already spent all the money on the gas and stuff, so go tag your birds and make sure you're not throwing them in a big old pile. And, go ahead and stay legal with Toe Tags LLC. We've also got Gypsum Creek Retrievers. Evan over there in Gypsum with a creek running, through the back of his yard, is running a awesome little kennel, and I got to go out and I got to go hunt with his flagship dog, and got to see the way that he interacts with that dog, and just the way he talks about, his business and his dogs and the dog he's training. Like it's really humbling to see a guy who's like so ate up with it and is just in it, and he's just doing it out of passion, and decided to make his passion something that can put dinner on the table. It's a heck of a deal. We've also got Athlon Optics. Athlon Optics, go check these guys out. They have some of the finest shooting scopes on the market, and their binoculars are bang up. Literally, they are the same quality as something that you'd pay 2 or 3 times the price of, and they're just a solid feeling binocular, and it's nice. I'm not going to do any direct comparisons out there, but I've held a lot of binoculars in my time, and I'm very satisfied with these ones. So go check them out at Athlon Optics. I've got the Midas 10x42, and it is suiting my needs perfectly out here in Kansas. All right. Next, we've got Freelance Hunt Stats. I've always logged and tracked all the birds that we've harvested and whatnot, but it wasn't until Elliot showed me his Freelance Hunt Stats at freelancehuntstats.com that it's not just a journal anymore. Now it's a database. Now I can go through and I can filter all the stuff that I want to know. Windy days, cloudy days, days I shot all blue-winged teal, like things of that nature, and even by location. And it's super affordable. Just don't buy one Monster this month or one Starbucks coffee, and you've got yourself what you need to keep track. Plus, super helpful when you go to fill out those HIP permits. So, all right. We've also got Duck Nuts. That's DUKNUTZ. And if you haven't seen the videos or pictures of me utilizing these things yet, I freaking hate dealing with Texas rigs, and I take out a lot of new hunters, and I'm always sitting there untangling stuff or unwrapping keels, and instead with these Duck Nuts, you just throw them on there, and all you gotta do is literally you just stretch out the line, or you can slide the weight all the way towards the decoy or down, and you just throw these things in a bag. It's awesome. Hey, they even came out with a carrying. It always seems that my wife is always walking in whenever I'm doing the Duck Nuts commercial, because she's just looking at me because she thinks it's hilarious. But they just came out with a bag, and it's called the Nut Sack, and it's pretty cool. You can strap your shotgun to it. They've also got hats too, and for my boy Wilson listening out there, Hunter over at Duck Nuts, he made a hat just for you, buddy, and all you other coot shooters out there. So, but yeah, so good stuff. Go check them out. Just a really great product. We've also got the DuckTech mobile app, and the DuckTech mobile app is an app that's designed to help you get better at calling ducks. It's got Barney Califf on there, a 2 or 3 time world duck calling champion, and he does the call, tells you what it's for, why to do it, when to do it, and then you can actually go in and press record yourself, and then you can hear it side by side, so you can see how you want to tweak it up. Pretty cool concept. A lot of times, you're just dealing with like a DVD or some other, like, here's the sounds, now make this sound. And that's not this right here. This is something that you can do on your commute. So, pretty sweet. All right, next we've got Gunner Kennels. And Gunner Kennels, if you have never laid your hands on a Gunner Kennel, probably some of the finest craftsmanship or example of overbuilding something. And that's perfect. That's fine with me. My wife she loves those things because it keeps the babies safe, the fur babies. And at the end of the day, you're kind of charged with the responsibility of that animal's life. And, I wear my seatbelt. I don't text and drive. Why am I going to, just throw my dog in the back of the truck to, be in jeopardy if something were to happen? And then newest partner that I'm super excited to get you guys into is HTR Innovations. That's HTR, like Hunter, Innovations. And they've got the coolest little thing. It's a stand that you can put out in the marsh that holds your gun, holds my recording equipment, box of shells, all this other stuff. Check it out on the Instagram page. They've also got an A-frame blind that they come out with that is super simple to set up, just like stupid simple. And then they've got, for you guys that absolutely hate layout blinds, they've got a layout blind insert, and makes that thing just about as comfy as the living room couch. So go check them out. And then last but not least, we've got SRB field rests. So you hiked into this muddy field, set out all your decoys, had your bag ready to go with your gun in it, and then you take your gun out and you just set it in the mud, or you're constantly making sure that you don't fumble this thing around. These two little stakes from SRB Field Rests, stick them there, lay your gun down on them. You didn't come this far to jam your gun up with a little bit of mud because you got excited about some geese in your face. So that was really dramatic. I have a little bit of a stuffy nose, it sounds like, but all right. We just want to let you guys know these companies are the bee's knees. These are cool people, great people. I'm not just throwing them on here so that I can take up your time and make money or whatever it is. I believe in these products. I believe in these people, and I'm a huge fan of somebody turning their passion into their everyday job so that they can try to escape some sort of 9-to-5 where somebody else is their boss. And I'm a huge fan of that. Trying to do that myself. So, yep. Before, think twice before you buy something similar to these. And they help bring you this show. And so if you like this show, you'd like it to be around, check these people out. So, all right, everybody, safe hunting.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast. Please come join us on our Facebook group, the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast group, where you can connect with a good group of hunters, because we're all in this together. We need to act like it so that hopefully our great-grandkids will be hunting ducks over our favorite public lands. We also ask that you go ahead and give us a written review on iTunes and give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. And we really do want to hear back from you so that we can give you the best possible content. And if you get in on that Facebook group, you can get in there and you can ask questions and you can tell us what you want to hear next, or you can tell us what you don't like. And we'll be sure to tailor things to our listeners. So, all right. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next week.